I'm Marcia Lehman, and I'm a Knox County Master Gardener. Today we're pruning a weeping cherry, and in most cases these are grafted trees, shrubs, and the graft is often between 3 and 6 feet. And in this particular case, the graft is closer to 6 feet. It's a fairly high graft. As a result of that graft, we sometimes get branches that want to go straight up, and if we can pan the video camera, we have some of those. So we will be removing the branches that just want to go straight up. If they're going up but they're starting to arch and they look like they might bend down and weep eventually, we'll leave them. But if they're going up in a direction that looks like they're never going to weep, then we're going to remove those. I'd refer you to the handout because there are some things we normally look for that we do not have on this specimen. We don't have any branches that hang down and touch the ground. There were just 2 itty-bitty little suckers around the trunk. I've already removed those because they're so small you wouldn't see them in the video. We do have a couple places where branches are rubbing, crossing, so we'll take one or the other out. And the one more likely to go will be the one that wants to grow up rather than weep. Then again, when branches start to come out too close together, we would thin that. But this shrub really does not need a lot of thinning. I can stand under here and still see up through the center of this canopy. So the canopy doesn't need much thinning. The length is great. There's nothing going on here. There's a little bit of dead that can be removed any time of year. And you just walk around, and when you bend it, it cracks, so you know it's dead. So, you know, some little pieces there. So we're going to start, and my first cut is probably slightly larger than I can do with loppers, so I'll set up the reciprocating saw to make that cut. We've identified here a branch that comes out, rubs underneath another one, but then goes straight up. So this is one of those straight up ones that we're going to remove because it probably will never weep. And it is larger than I can do with the loppers. But this is where it was attached, and it simply was growing up and probably was never going to weep. Plus, it was rubbing, so it's a goner. Our next cut we were looking at is here, and also grows straight up, and that is small enough to take with the loppers. Now as we work on this, it is probably going to look a little lopsided for a year or so, but we hope that in pruning this and getting some of the straight up growing stuff out of the way, it will create space for other things to grow. And what we want to do is to get enough length that it will droop. And you can see in these branches that they just naturally do that. So every now and then you get one that just doesn't want to droop, and he gets cut. Here we have a branch that comes out and then it forks, and this side wants to weep, but the other side wants to go straight up. So the other side is going to get snipped, and we'll keep the side that weeps. We've got one more branch on this side that wants to grow straight up, and so it's going to come off too. And all these cuts are being made at a branch collar. We're not cutting into the trunk wood. So it may look like there's a slight stub there, but that is the branch collar, and that will heal over in a year or so. And if I tried to cut that flush, I would be cutting into the bark of the adjacent area, and then it would not heal. So those are the first couple of cuts, and interestingly enough, all those straight up cuts were on one side of this shrub. The other side of the shrub wants to weep in what is a pretty natural way. So we'll walk around here and see if this is the point at which we stop, or do we need to make a few more cuts. This shrub is a classic example of where you need to pause regularly and walk around and look at it. And as we did that, we came back and said, well, here is one more branch, And we debated just heading it back a bit and hoping that some of the upper branches would start to weep. But the way it's growing, we decided that in fact we would take it off all the way back here at the attachment point. So that's another lopper cut. And now we actually think, aside from cleaning up a little bit of dead material, some of it is still sending out some leaves, but just walking around and trying to break off the dead stuff. If it bends, it's not dead. And if it goes crack, it is dead. So that, as I walk around this one more time, I think we're at a point of stopping. So we'll give this a year or so to grow and see what else needs to happen. But again, that tendency to put up some straight up shoots, they're not exactly water sprouts, but the weeping cherry, most of the branches weep, but not all of them weep. And so when you get the ones that want to grow straight up, you just take them out. And the other thing that it does in taking them out is you thin out the canopy. So this canopy is in fine shape, a little touch up here, there, next year. It doesn't need a lot of care. And as I say, in many cases, we have to come in and shorten these. You do not want these long branches touching the ground, because that's how they pick up fungal diseases. But we don't have anything touching the ground. We've got nothing even close to the ground. So I would say we're done with this shrub. That's the weeping cherry. Please take a look at the pointers in the handout. We thank you for joining us today, and we hope you learned something.